Story 1. Rich to me means being free, waking up without panic, doing what you love, living life on your own terms without constantly worrying about money. Story 2. It would mean, at least to me, having the mental assurance that all my bills were paid and probably feeling stress-free for the first time since I turned 18 years old. Story 3. I grew up in an affluent family, and we were friends with some high net worth individuals, including a couple of billionaires. My dad used to say that they had enough money to never worry about money. This meant that they could afford to walk away from any business deal, any position they held, or anything else. Story 4. Never having to worry about housing, food, healthcare, or emergencies. That is the absence of stress. That is what being wealthy means to me. Story 5. Comfortably having all of your financial and emotional needs met and reaching self-actualization. I don't need millions, but the comfort of not having to budget week by week, being able to save money for emergencies and taking a trip once a year. Having a support system of like-minded individuals that I can see regularly without having to coordinate schedules months in advance. Being able to take a sick day without worrying about how it will affect my paycheck. Story 6. To me, rich, as in material wealth, means not worrying about being able to pay bills or buy groceries, owning a big house in a nice, scenic area, and being able to buy the latest technology and a brand new car. Story 7. I never look at grocery prices. I just buy what I want. That is rich. I acknowledge it. It is not yet rich, but it is still rich. Story 8. If you have food to eat and a warm place to sleep, you are richer than many people in the world. Story 9. Not worrying about losing my job. Knowing I will be 100% fine and have the runway required to find something new without fear, even if it takes the duration of a recession to get back to where I was income-wise. Story 10. Enough money to never have to think, can I afford this? And enough money to quit your job or leave the workforce at a moment's notice. Story 11. Debt-free, including house and cars, and able to live as I please. I can gift my family trips and similar experiences, and have my back covered if circumstances change. Story 12. In my mind, this is what I think of when I hear the following terms. Well off, financially stable, able to recover from an emergency, upper middle class to upper class. Rich, millionaire. Wealthy, multimilionaire. The 1%, billionaire. Story 13. You can buy whatever you want without planning for it or considering the cost seriously. You do not really need to work. If you work, it is simply for something to do. Story 14. Financially independent. Working a job is no longer a requirement for keeping yourself housed and fed. You might still work, but money is not the motivation. You can quit at any time, take a break, or switch jobs without suffering a financial penalty. Story 15. Being able to go for a 3-hour bike ride in the middle of the day on a random Tuesday is a bigger flex to me than having a $1,000 car payment while trying to convince people that I have wealth. Time is the most precious commodity. Story 16. I feel rich means you can go out and do or buy whatever you want within varying degrees of richness without needing to check your bank account beforehand. This includes cars, expensive vacations, high-end jewelry, and so on. I think well-off is the same but refers to day-to-day necessities like rent, food, gas, entertainment, and restaurants. Story 17. Financial freedom. Being able to buy most things you want when you look at them without breaking your wallet or worrying if you can still pay bills afterward. Going out to eat where you want without checking the prices first. Being able to see the world without questioning if you will still be able to pay rent after booking the flight. Doing the hobby you love without always choosing the cheaper option. Of course, there is also the wealthy elite, but yes. Story 18. Assuming you mean financially, then having multiple children and regularly able to splurge on luxuries while owning a house and supporting a stay-at-home spouse without being in debt. Story 19. I think Jimmy Carr said it best when he said, if having more money would not change what you do, you are rich. I do not know if I am quite there by that definition, but I am pretty close. I am a fully remote information technology consultant and enjoy what I do, though not necessarily for the organization I am currently with. I have enjoyed previous roles more. However, the point is that being rich is not about what or how much you have, but the reward and comfort with which you live your life. Story 20. You can do whatever you want whenever you want, however you want, and people cannot say anything about you. That is my definition of wealthy, so I am poor. Story 21. A cup of hot coffee and a laugh with a friend. A warm day with light rain, listening to the birds. And a yacht. Story 22. Jimmy Carr said it best. If earning or having more money would not change what you do or how you live, then you are rich. Story 23. I think most people would define rich as the ability to maintain a comfortable lifestyle solely from passive income without having to work. Story 24. Be able to fly in a private jet cuts out all the security and allows you to fly out whenever you want. The middle class can afford first class. It would be very hard for them to spend $40,000 to $60,000 for a one-way trip riding private, when first-class commercial flights only cost $1,000 to $1,500. Realistically, most middle-class passengers pay for coach at around $300. Story 25. To me, the day I can go to a restaurant with my girlfriend and not worry at all about prices or what the total bill is, that is the day I consider myself wealthy and financially free. Story 26. Friends, family, good health, and not needing to check your balance when you want to buy something. Story 27. The ability to take as much time away from work as I want to pursue whatever I would like without worrying that my bills will not be paid or that I cannot afford it. Story 28. Having the capability to enjoy life instead of working at a job you hate that only provides enough to survive. Story 29. Not being in any debt, never having to worry about being in debt, able to take multiple week-long vacations. I would even settle for staying at a luxury resort at Disney World instead of a value resort. Story 30. When you can buy the things you want but do not need. I can buy a coffee every day, a waffle, and some food to go without needing to think about it twice. Story 31. Not having to worry about If you mean rich as in wealthy, I would say it is when you have enough so that you do not have to work anymore. When working is an option instead of a necessity. Story 32. Not concerned with missed paychecks. It does not matter. Either bills are fully paid, or bills can be paid with what one has. I will work until I die to be sure. I did not save enough while I was young, and I had too much trouble maintaining earnings during my 27-year career so far. I have done better over the last 7 to 8 years, without long gaps of lost income. I have saved as if my life depends on it because it somewhat does. I am never going to be able to make up for 20 years of low to no savings though. Story 33. To me, being wealthy means having enough money to be comfortable, with sufficient savings to cover an emergency. Losing your job and being okay until you find a new one. However, when I say eat the rich, I am referring to billionaires. Story 34. After making more money than I can spend after a life of absolute poverty, I honestly don't know. Enough to help whoever I see, enough to make sure my parents never have to work, enough to make my cats happy, enough to buy new bladders every year and intramuscular ketamine once a week to feel the embrace of God, wherever he is. I don't have all of that, but I'm making more than I ever have and I'm so lonely. Nobody could ever understand where I've come from or what I am inside. There comes a time when crying in a Lamborghini is just as bad as crying on a street corner. Wherever you go, there you are. Being rich then would be being blind and dumb and blissfully ignorant of existentialism. Being rich would be poor. But things are the way they are whether I like it or not. So I keep trying. I don't know. Just venting. I'm not wealthy. But rich to me would be being able to give everyone that has nothing something enough to be happy. It's tautological, though, isn't it? Being rich with money isn't really the question here, is it? Being rich with mind. Now I wonder what that is. At the same time, the only problem is that we think there's a problem. Things are good and things are bad, that's just reality. Acceptance with forethought, perhaps, is wealth. Story 35. Having a single-family home, a reliable car, no debt, and enough money to go on vacation 3 times a year. Story 36. To be rich is not really about money to me. It means having a strong bond with family, doing something you love, and living life knowing that tomorrow is not guaranteed. Story 37. Rich means having enough money to live a decent life without needing employment. If you can afford a place to live, some luxuries, and your necessities without working, simply living off the income from your money, that is rich. Story 38. I just want to be rich enough to not have to work so I can do what is important to me, explore my hobbies and passions, and be with my family, all while not stressing about bills or anything regarding money. Story 39. I may consider myself wealthy when I am able to outsource tasks such as cleaning the mess my children make every day. Story 40. A roof over my head, food to eat, a brother I know I can count on, and an amazing son who always makes me proud. Story 41. If you would not change what you do for a living after being given $1 million, then you are already rich. That does not necessarily mean you have to start with a lot of money. Story 42. Having enough money to do everything you want without ever having to work again unless you choose to. Story 43. To live a life full of normal experiences without needing to work. Not worrying about finances daily, weekly, or monthly. Story 44. There is no monetary benchmark for being rich because even billionaires are poor in their hearts when all they want is more. To me, being rich is a state of the heart that is willing to open the wallet when there is a need. Story 45. Having an amount of money that you do not earn by participating in the same legal system as, for example, a school teacher or bus driver. Story 46. Rich is when you have a group of people who are paid to worry about things for you. You have people who manage your finances, your homes, your legal issues, your medical issues, personal assistants, and gophers ready to do whatever you tell them. That is rich. People who have a nice house and nice cars are well-off, upper class, but rich is a higher tier. Story 47. Being able to go to the grocery store without checking my bank account or using a calculator to make sure I do not go over budget. Story 48. Financial freedom to live comfortably without worry. I am not talking about excessive amounts, just a comfortable amount to live decently and within my means. Real humility is what I am working towards. Story 49. Rich is having wealth that allows complete financial freedom. This clip kind of says it all. Story 50. Not having to carry a credit card debt and not adjusting your finances around property taxes, home, and vehicle insurance due dates. Story 51. Being able to choose how many or how few hours you work. Knowing you will always be able to afford whatever you or your family want or need. Being able to afford any travel you desire. Story 52. Rich, able to pay the bills for a nice home and cars while also saving and affording vacations from those savings. Wealthy, not even thinking about the money. It is just there. Story 53. Living well means having enough money to live a good life and having what you need. The more things you have, the more money you need to maintain them. It is a cycle that never ends. Story 54. I have a friend who is 62, earns $1.5 million a year, and spends it all on cars, wine, and dinner. He is nowhere near retiring. I am nearly 50, earn an average middle-class income, and may be able to retire in a few years. What you do with your money has a much greater impact on your life than how much you earn. Story 55. Rich means you are free. I do not need to be wealthy to go out and eat Story 56. It means being tempted to vote for the Republican Party regardless of their assaults on police officers, women, students, science, people of color, facts, reality, and decency. Story 57. Being able to shop and eat at places without prices, with bills never being a concern and healthcare never being a worry. Story 58. Being rich to me means not having to worry about the cost of your day-to-day living, including some of the nicer things in life like vacations or luxury expenses. Being wealthy means not having to work while sustaining a rich lifestyle. Story 59. My experience with people who are very wealthy is this. They may inspect the receipt after making a purchase just to ensure they were not overcharged. My experience with people who are actually rich, like financially independent rich, is that they do not even look at the bill. They hand their credit or debit card over without hearing the total and often do not even care to take their receipt. They know they can afford whatever they want without taking even half a second to consider the financial consequences. They do not take time to consider things they can afford. They just do it, and if they do not like it, they do it over again. There is a man who lives near my mother's house who owns an enormous mansion. He re-landscaped his entire front yard 3 times in a couple of years, added a pond, many different trees, and terrace gardens. The most recent update I am aware of was adding a stretch of almost fully grown hedges along the fence of his whole property so nobody could see beyond it. Since the hedges have grown over the last few years, he has much more privacy. A friend of mine had very wealthy parents when I was younger. They would say things like, "We really just went out to look around, but I ended up buying a new plane. It's out in the hangar. Want to go see it?" They lived along a shared private airfield with many other families who are very wealthy. Story 60. It is as much about access to people, places, and things as it is having the time to enjoy them. If you have all the money to buy everything but no time, that is not being rich. It is just making money. Story 61. At this point, rich is synonymous with out of touch and arrogant. My sister-in-law and her husband make around $250,000 a year, and they are both so out of touch it's embarrassing. I know that's not even considered rich for most people, but they live in the Kansas City suburbs, so it is rich for the area. Being rich also means you don't have to deal with the same problems most of us face. You can simply pay to make them go away. I honestly believe this makes you weak, and that is what primarily makes them out of touch. Story 62. Not having to work for a job and still being able to live life however I want without having to think about how much is in my bank accounts. Not because I am avoidant or in denial, but because I never have to worry there will not be enough money in the account to cover purchases or expenses. Story 63. Living comfortably without worrying about which bill to pay or not pay, and being able to save money from every paycheck. Story 64. I know a few people through my child's school who make mid-6, nearly 7 figures per year. My former supervisors could have taken home 7 figures if they did not want to reinvest in the business for growth. However, all those people work 40 to 50 hours a week. But they still show up daily to work. To me, they are not rich. They are certainly not working class, but rich is someone who makes those numbers or more and only attends a monthly board meeting or is in the office once or twice a week. If you are willing to have coffee with the janitor and employees in the morning, you might have money but you are not rich. Rich is a mindset more than a dollar figure. Story 65. Free healthcare and not having to work 50 to 60 hours a week just to be too tired to try to do the things you enjoy. Story 66. Rich means not having to worry about the cost of things like ordinary people do. A $450 energy bill? No problem. A $700 bottle of bubbly? Bring it on. It also means being able to hire people to do things for you, such as cleaning your house, doing your laundry, cooking for you, cutting your grass, and not having to worry about the cost. It means being able to afford the very best health and dental care. It means being able to take exotic trips often and stay in 5-star resorts or private villas, flying business or first class, never setting foot in economy class. It means being surrounded by nice things. It means rarely stubbing your toe on anything because your property is spacious and there is no clutter anywhere. It means being able to go grocery shopping and not look at the prices of things. It means not having to work. Story 67. Rich means you have landed a situation where you are getting paid more than you are actually worth. Story 68. Not having to seriously worry about money. Being able to pay for things without needing to check my balance. Never worrying that my car is going to quit on me while stopped at a stoplight. Story 69. Enough that I can have a decent house with enough rooms for everyone and with the kitchen, bathroom, and other features that I would like installed, a decent car, enough money to go on vacation with all my free days, enough money to not have to spend my vacations working on the house, and finally enough to save up for things like gadgets and toys for myself and my kids. After that, you have a luxury problem. You are rich if you have this. Or, as someone put it years ago, enough money that I won't think twice about having the oil of my car changed. Story 70. Whenever this topic comes up, I am reminded of an episode of a reality show, I think it was the Orange County, where a group of girls at a club rack up a table bill of $130,000 in one night. Without hesitation, one of them hands over their credit card. That is rich. Story 71. Not living paycheck to paycheck. Having enough money so you do not have to worry about when the next payday is. Story 72. Rich has housekeepers, chefs, and gardeners. Seeing something fun like a motorcycle and just buying it. Sending my child to a $600 a week overnight summer camp because she deserves to go, and I do not think twice about how to manage it when she asks. Story 73. Never having to work again is the bare minimum. If you still have to work, you are fortunate at best. Story 74. I was poor my entire life until about 5 years ago. The biggest challenge for me was going to the store or getting gasoline without checking my account balance first. Additionally, I used to fill my tank completely every time I refueled. Story 75. Financially, being able to randomly buy expensive things instead of buying inexpensive or broken items and fixing them up the way my dad does with boats and cars. I would say wealthy people don't need to inherit their family home to turn it into a lake house or sell an inherited house to own a new boat. These are engineer interests and devoted mechanical and technical hobbies. Wealth means you can point at something and make a decision. Determination and sober effort mean finding what you can afford and turning it into something you love. Wealth, to me, means having fulfilling friendships built on shared fundamental values and deeply meaningful bonds. It means having someone who wants to listen and make time for you. Wealth means having connections with people who passionately collaborate instead of letting you do your thing. Story 76. Family and friends who love and support you. I see many comments about money, but even billionaires struggle to be loved for who they are. Story 77. Being rich means having enough money so that you are not dependent on an employer for anything and can live a comfortable lifestyle in the current economy. Story 78. Having enough to live comfortably, not having to worry about bills, and still having enough to put away in a savings account. Then there are the miserable rich who have more money than they can ever use, but can never be happy since all they know is the hunt for more money. Story 79. Owning your own time is not just being rich but also being wealthy to me. No one can tell you what to do. You get up each day with no stress about money. Of course, you can have other stresses in life, but money stress is a huge one to get rid of. Story 80. Being able to travel, eat out, go shopping, have a nice house, have a nice car, and pamper myself and my family without worrying about bills or grocery prices. Story 81. If having more of whatever you value than you currently have does not change what you do, that is wealth. Story 82. To have enough challenges in life so that you do not settle for less or stop evolving, but not so many challenges that life becomes a constant battle and feels like you are stuck in a hole. Always never give up. To look back at a life where you end up in a place you never imagined, but if you had, you would be very proud of yourself. Story 83. Waking up knowing all your bills are paid, house and cars paid off, and you never have to worry about, what if I lose my job? Or the plane ticket is too much. It is freedom in the end. Money cannot buy happiness, but it can certainly buy less stress and peace of mind. Story 84. A gossip girl lifestyle. Going where I want whenever I want. Eating and drinking beautiful things. Going to see cool things like concerts and dances. Traveling to rare nature sites and experiencing different cultures with safety and comfort. Buying clothes and shoes and driving attractive cars. Having access to hair and makeup stylists, personal chefs, and physical trainers. Bodyguards so I can walk safely wherever and whenever I please. Designing a mansion from scratch for myself. Multiple mansions. Finally, the best medical care available. Outside of myself, giving all of my family access to these same things. Story 85. I have a roof over my head. Bills are paid. I am healthy as far as I know. I go for checkups. My children are healthy. Our marriage is healthy and thriving. Our children are happy and amazing. We have food in our refrigerator. We have savings. I may not be a millionaire, but we have what we need. We are rich. Story 86. I spent 4/5 of my childhood in difficult financial conditions and the last 1/5 in college without ever having to worry about affording expensive food, eating out, or doing the things I enjoy. Being somewhat wealthy means being the sole master of your fate. It is freedom. Story 87. As long as my wife and children are healthy, everything else comes in a distant second place. I am completely dedicated to my family. Take everything away from me except that, and I am the wealthiest man alive. Story 88. Arbitrarily, this is how I would define it based on my experience in life. Cripplingly impoverished. Largely in developing countries, you do not have any savings or any means to procure food in the next immediate 6 hours. You live hour to hour in a desperate state fighting against hunger. You may largely forage for food. There are no other options or safety nets. Impoverished. You do not have any savings. You have a means to procure food for the next 24 hours, but are at immediate risk of missing a meal or being without shelter or water should you make a single minor mistake. You may rely on the charity of strangers or family to get by. Lower income. You live largely paycheck to paycheck and have a means to procure food, water, and shelter for the next 2 weeks, with a few amenities such as a phone, computer, or access to consumer goods. You can afford to make minor mistakes without endangering your source of food, water, or shelter. You can enjoy spontaneous small amenity purchases, such as buying a Magic the Gathering card pack for nostalgia or an air fryer on a whim. Middle income. You have savings to cushion you in case of minor or moderate misfortune, such as a car accident or major home repair. You enjoy a decent amount of amenities through consumer goods and likely have funds to enjoy spontaneous small and medium-sized amenities. Upper income. You have access to passive income through capital gains, investments, or shares in businesses, or a significant financial cushion that allows you to suffer major misfortunes and recover. You enjoy many amenities, including consumer goods and luxury experiences like vacations and exclusive memberships. You can afford spontaneous purchases ranging from small to large, transitioning quickly from planning to booking trips. Extreme wealth. You have access to income that guarantees recovery from any personal misfortune. You enjoy amenities some may never experience, such as courtside basketball tickets, backstage access to favorite musicians, or autographed art. You can spontaneously make large purchases on a whim, like taking your family to the Alps for a weekend. Your considerations for spending and wealth management span decades and the lifetimes of your children. Story 89. I can go to the grocery store and get anything. I can even afford to throw a barbecue for my friends. I do not need anything more than that. Story 90. A really deep concept is the freedom that comes with financial abundance. It is interesting because, on one hand, money can bring peace of mind, knowing your basic and even luxurious needs are always covered. But then there is the question, is true wealth about having access to things you do not need, or is it more about the freedom to live without constantly worrying about money? I imagine you are talking about the idea of not just financial freedom, but emotional freedom as well. When money no longer plays a role in your fears or anxieties, the focus shifts from accumulating things to finding deeper satisfaction. Whereas wealth gives you the ability to buy things you do not need, you simply want. Story 91. Actually owning a home instead of paying a bank a significant portion of my salary so they do not take it away. Story 92. To manage it means being able to spend and save money each month. Everyday expenses can be covered without wondering if you are within budget or having to change dinner ideas, such as eating pasta instead of meat as originally planned. Story 93. The real definition is having far more money than needed to live and the ability to have what you want without worrying about cost. There is also a mistaken definition people created to feel better about themselves, involving the love of a good partner, successful reproduction, sunsets, or whatever makes them feel good. Story 94. Rich is being able to make ends meet for 6 months to a year with a sudden loss of all income. Beyond that is wealthy. Story 95. For me, it means having financial freedom, being able to afford medical and dental care, and not worrying about upcoming bills. Story 96. I remember getting out of the army and applying for my first charge card at Pier 1 Imports. It had a $500 limit, and back then, they approved or disapproved right at the counter while others watched. I did not get approved, and it was humiliating. Now, every credit card company is asking me to sign up. It's all relative. There's always a bigger fish. But when you grow up poor and end up with money in your pocket, it is definitely an achievement. Story 97. To me, being rich is not about money. It is when you and your loved ones are healthy, at peace, and in a good place in life. When your family is safe, your friends are doing well, and you wake up with a grateful heart, that is real wealth. Everything else is just a bonus. Story 98. Not stressing about having to choose what to pay for every day. Rent is covered. Clothes are covered. Food is covered. Utilities are covered. That would be great. Story 99. I've put a lot of thought into this. Rich means being able to live where you want to live, drive what you want to drive, vacation where and when you want to vacation, be able to send your children to an in-state public college, and be able to take a one-year hit to your income without any visible effect on your lifestyle. To me, this is rich. Story 100. Being able to do whatever you want whenever you want. Money helps, but it is not actually necessary. The trick is to pursue richness in life, not riches. Story 101. Take financial risks and help others without fear of going bankrupt or being unable to support my family. Story 102. Do you still look at price tags whenever you are shopping or looking at a menu at a restaurant? Do you ask how much a service will cost? Do you fear missing out on payments? If not, you are rich. Story 103. Richness equals happiness in its purest form. Being loved and surrounded by good people. A good quality of life means nothing luxurious, just a paid-up mortgage and no worries about buying food, with occasional treats of dining out at nice places. Enjoying being alive and spending time in nature. Simple things. Story 104. To me, rich means there is too much of something but not detrimental. For example, my car is running rich, it is using too much fuel. But that is better than running lean. That does not mean wealthy. Story 105. Rich means living your daily life without worrying if you can afford basic necessities next week. In addition, it means being able to travel without concern for costs and not having to worry about losing your job or unexpected expenses that damage your savings significantly. Story 106. If you have to ask, you cannot afford it. I was once told that by an ex who was quite wealthy. He said never to refuse to buy something because of the price. If you want it, get it. We can afford it. That specific incident happened when we were in San Francisco shopping on Union Street with all its boutiques. I saw an Italian leather coat with calf leather soft as gloves, large lamb suede shoulders, elbow patches on the sleeves, and a silk lining. It was on sale for 50% off and was still $875. That was a lot of money for me in 1985. I really liked it when I tried it on but hung it back up. That was when I was told to get it. It looked good on me and I was not to look at price tags anymore. That is wealth, especially when it is old family money and will not go away as quickly as it appeared. So much that it would be a full-time job spending it all. We were only together for a few years, but when his mother died, he inherited billions. He died a very wealthy man. Story 107. It's not about the amount that you have. It's more about the effect it has on you. You can have someone with a net worth of $1 million, but if they are surrounded by billionaires, they will feel poor, even if they are objectively wealthy. The same works for the opposite situation, such as having a moderate amount in a poor neighborhood. Being rich, to me, means feeling fulfilled financially and having an innate happiness that is not reliant on the number in your account. Story 108. Completely unworried about healthcare, retirement, and how to pay for this week's food never crosses your mind. Story 109. Being rich is knowing how to contribute to society, being able to do so, living a fulfilling life with friends and family, and making positive growth memories. Story 110. Rich means having so much money I am terrified others will try to take it away, so I make moves in any capacity to prevent others from achieving what I have achieved. Story 111. Having enough money that if all my sources of income were to dry up instantly, I would still have enough to meet all my needs, including health care and any children I might have, plus to retire in my current lifestyle. Story 112. I have several definitions. I would say anyone who owns more than one house or can retire with no issue is on the cusp of wealthy. They are wealthy in the lowest sense of the word. Then there are people who can smoke $100 cigars daily and enjoy that type of lifestyle. I consider them truly wealthy, as in having enough money to cover the good versions of all of life's necessities, most of the wants, and still have money in the bank. Then there are the ultra-wealthy, those are the billionaires and people with more wealth than they could actually spend. Story 113. For me, There is a difference between rich and wealthy. Rich is the point where you have too much to care, and it is more of a mindset than an actual state. Wealthy is where it is at. You are comfortable, do not have to worry about penny pinching, and can afford your needs without having to budget. Story 114. Our income would be below the poverty level in many places in the United States of America. Still, I feel like we are rich. You can only sleep in one bed at a time, eat one meal at a time, and do one hobby at a time. Being retired with zero debts, a paid-off house and vehicles, and already having enough of everything we need. My army pension includes family health insurance for life. Coupled with Social Security, it covers all our monthly expenses. My wife's retirement covers surprises, like when we needed to replace the central heating and air systems this year. She paid cash. We scrimped for decades, and now we can just buy whatever we want for groceries or our modest hobbies. Story 115. Rich to me would be never worrying about bills or costs. Not being reckless with money, but just having normal bills would be whatever, not how can I budget for this or what should I cut out to pay this. Story 116. Being able to put your hand in your pocket and purchase what you need without having to ask yourself if you have enough money. For example, if your washing machine breaks down or you have to fly interstate to help someone close who has had a traumatic incident, you reach into your pocket, grab your card, and purchase or book the flight without a second thought. Story 117. A relationship that does not stress me out, friends who are truly friends, making enough to pay bills and still have some to enjoy the things I like. I am happy to say I have that. Story 118. My number for instant retirement is probably 3 million Australian dollars. With $5 million, I would consider myself wealthy but not enough to start giving money away to my family. At $10 million, I would consider myself rich and might give a few generous gifts to family, such as cars. At $100 million, I would consider myself extremely rich and would pay off all my family's debts, set them up in other ways, and give them some regular income from a trust. Story 119. If you have food and shelter, you are considered rich by some. If you are not your own boss and cannot afford to live in Dubai, you are considered poor by some. At times in my life, I have been penniless. At other times, I enjoyed the freedom of not having money as a concern. I was healthy physically, emotionally, and spiritually at times. At other times, I was not. My degree of poverty or wealth did not seem to affect my well-being. To me, being rich means having the capacity to play the cards you are dealt without feeling the need for a backup plan to escape this world, just in case. Story 120. Manageable debt, if any at all. No financial stress. Enough disposable income to make choices, not trade-offs. Story 121. You can never work and still live comfortably. You can experience the highest quality services that humans have to offer. Story 122. Taking a step back and looking across all of my lived experience, I am there right now. 2 solid incomes, very stable jobs, savings, and cash flow are in great spots, and careers should only improve from here. That said, in this moment, I still feel far away. I could buy a decent house, but to get what I really want, not a mansion, but what would make me, my wife, my child, and 2 dogs comfortable, would be a big stretch and stress the limits of our budget. Additionally, while my child is still very young, the area we are in is not the best for public school, which I desperately want him to attend for a number of reasons. So yes, definitely a first world problem, but still not as stress-free as I would like. Story 123. No specific amount. Just the feeling of being able to buy what I want, when I want, without ever worrying if I am going to need that money later on instead. Story 124. I interact with many wealthy people, and the biggest thing I notice is that they have the mentality that work is optional. Story 125. In the middle of the United States, rich to me is $250,000 per year for an individual. Wealthy is the same amount but earned as passive income that requires almost no effort on your part. Story 126. Being able to retire and then having enough money to afford the care necessary to die in your own bed. Story 127. About 7 years ago, I was shoplifting crackers just so I could have something to eat. Today, I am just one background check away, which I will pass, from a job that will pay me more than a Supreme Court judge makes in my country. It is nearly 6 figures in a third world country. which means financial independence. I am starting therapy, and I will have health insurance. Being rich means not being hungry and never being afraid of hunger again. It means safety. It means peace of mind and comfort. It means retiring early. It means being able to take care of my parents and my in-laws when they retire. It means no debt and buying a house in cash. It means never again sleeping with the window wide open in the dead of winter just to avoid asphyxiating on the gas leak the landlord will not bother fixing. But you cannot leave because the room is so cheap, and your meager $150 per month salary is almost enough to afford food. It means not being scared, not crying yourself to sleep from hunger, not counting the minimum calories you need to survive until your next paycheck, and deciding that rounding down a couple of days will not kill you. It means not waiting outside the store after closing hours to see if they throw away any edible produce. It means not taking medicine that expired 2 months ago. It is freedom. It is dignity. Story 128. Unfortunately, we cannot afford the kind of definition that involves being happy. In the society we live in, it means, and sadly, it has to mean, having a sizable excess of money and resources. Story 129. $10 billion. If you have less than that, you are considered financially struggling. Even with $10 billion, you are closer to being homeless than to Jeff Bezos. Story 130. Rich means you do not have W-2 income. You have a lot of money, and instead of you working, your money works to generate more money, and that is what pays for everything. Story 131. Time. You can show up late or right on time for everything and still have a great seat or comfortable spot. You go through very important person lines everywhere when traveling. You do not have to wait for public transit. People do all the menial tasks for you. You do not have to spend your Saturday mowing lawns or at the laundromat. Story 132. I have enough money for food and shelter for my family, and enough extra to enjoy my hobbies. Basically, having enough not to worry all the time. Story 133. The ability to do the activities you want, spend time with the people you want when you want to, or be generous to others without having to consider the impact on your budget. To me, that is in the $5 million invested range, generating a passive safe withdrawal rate income of $200,000 per year. Depending on your preferences and the area you live in, it could be much more or much less. Story 134. If someone in my family has serious medical issues such as a major accident or chronic illness, and I am able to fully focus all my energy and time on their care without once worrying about the medical bills, then I consider myself extremely rich. I hope to reach that point one day. Story 135. There is no need to worry about money primarily, but also in general, while living a decent life that consists of more than working and sleeping. I do not know the source readily, but I learned as a small child, lucky is the one without illness. Rich is the one without debt. Story 136. To me, it is about the ratio of what you earn to what you want. You can earn a lot, but if you want a lot more, you are poor. You can earn very little, but if you want even less, you are rich. Story 137. Not having to work for the rest of your life to have basic bills and expenses paid every month, or being very close to this. Story 138. To be fully healthy, have a few really close and good friends, and a wonderful, loving immediate family. Also, not having to worry about money or how I will live out my golden years. Story 139. I can choose to do or not do what I want when I want, and it has no measurable impact on my physical, mental, emotional, or financial well-being. Story 140. Rich means being able to collect monthly passive income, such as dividends, that are large enough to cover all mandatory expenses and have enough left over for discretionary expenses, while also having no mortgage to pay. About $1 million in a tax-free savings account in Canada could generate approximately $15,000 untaxed annually. That is probably enough to live comfortably. Story 141. Not having to work. I do not need a lavish lifestyle, but if I could wake up and not worry about the basics and still afford international travel a few times a year, that would be rich for me. Story 142. If we are talking about money, I would define it as no debt, no worries about the price at the restaurant, and no worries about the price of the vacation. Anything beyond that is greed. Story 143. It means having no morals and making hundreds of millions a year. being able to pay off senators to push through legislation that makes you billions more. This being free, waking up without panic, doing what you love answer is how your life would be without wealthy people. Story 144. If a major appliance fails and I can replace it without financial hardship, I feel that I am rich. I come from over a century of generational poverty. Story 145. If you have a roof over your head, reliable transportation, someone who loves you, and a good work-life balance, to me that is the epitome of rich. The extra zeros and commas are irrelevant. Story 146. Having enough money to never have to work again and to buy anything you want whenever you want means living a comfortable life. With that money comes freedom. Story 147. $25 million or more. Someone did the math and explained how wealthy people manage their money wisely. They concluded that with a competent wealth management service, you would reach a point where people would essentially give you money to stay rich because it would be in their best and most profitable interest to keep you wealthy. As long as you avoid making absolutely foolish decisions like MC Hammer, you would probably make over $1 million a year just by being rich. Story 148. Rich, to me, means having enough income generated through passive means so I no longer have to work. That is my definition of rich because I am free to do what I want without working. Story 149. I can have an emergency without having to worry about bills, work, eating, or going bankrupt. Anything beyond that is a luxury. Story 150. It means I can still work but then choose what I do with my money versus having to pay the mortgage, car, and other expenses. By choose, I mean my wife and children choose what I do with my money. Story 151. For me, it's simple. When something needs doing, you don't need to worry. Car needs 4 new tires? You can pay for it without worrying about not having fuel. Tumble dryer broke down? Just buy a new one without it affecting your shopping budget. Stuff like that. I don't want to be very rich. I just don't want to have to worry anymore. Story 152. My first thought is lots of money, but I would not swap my wife, children, and life for lots of money, so I guess that makes me rich. Story 153. John Waters described it as being able to go to a bookstore and buy any book he wanted without looking at the price. Story 154. Rich means having close friends and family who listen, understand, and accept you for who you are. Story 155. Paid off house, paid off cars, having 20 years of savings, being able to carry your identification, credit card, and a stack of $100 bills so you can tip everyone in cash. Not worrying about $20,000 vacations. Those types of things would be great. Story 156. I am rich. I do not have everything, but I have what I need and more. I consider myself fortunate. Story 157. Financial freedom means being able to handle any and all difficult circumstances and accidents that life throws at you with no financial strain whatsoever. It is not just about buying many things. Story 158. Rich means having the ability to buy anything that life offers and enough to keep doing it. You can buy a yacht, fly first class anytime, take multiple family vacations a year, live on the water, and eat wherever or whatever you want. You earn at least $1 million or more a year. Many people approach you for money to do business. To me, this is rich. Story 159. Not needing to work. I will consider myself rich once my investments generate enough yearly interest so that I can live solely on that income and not need to work. Story 160. Not worrying about money, healthcare, retirement, getting fired, or anything that makes me lose sleep now. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.